Welcome back, everyone, to Cyber Voices, the official podcast of the Australian Information Security Association, also known as AISA. I'm your host, David Savva-Willett, and it is my pleasure to bring you the diverse voices of the Australian cyber community. I am coming to you today from Canberra CyberConnect 2026, AISA's new and inaugural CyberConnect event here in the nation's capital. And my next guest is an influential voice in artificial intelligence, that thing that we're all talking about, and I can guarantee you there are a number of talks going on here at Canberra CyberConnect about that. So sitting across from me at the moment is Professor Toby Walsh, a professor of AI at University of New South Wales in Sydney and chief scientist of UNSW.ai. He has spoken at the United Nations and to several heads of state on the limits we need to place on AI, and his advocacy on the military uses of AI famously got him banned indefinitely from Russia. We'll have to talk a bit more about that. He is the author of 5 books for general audiences, most recently, The Shortest History of AI, 6 Ideas Are All You Need to Know. If this conversation resonates with you today, make sure that you subscribe to Cyber Voices on your podcast app of choice and leave us a 5-star review. It does help others find the show. Toby Walsh, welcome to Cyber Voices.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, and you're doing a bit of a fly-in, fly-out to Canberra CyberConnect today, I believe. You've just arrived. I'm going to talk to you, then you're going to go be on a panel, and then you're off again.
Yes, well, everyone wants to hear about artificial intelligence these days. So I suspect I've made many people listening to the podcast job slightly more challenging, but also slightly more interesting, I suspect, as well. So apologies for all the AI threats coming your way. But on the other hand, and that's the true story about AI, it's always a double-edged sword. There are also lots of interesting AI tools coming your way to help you deal with those increased threat.
Yeah, and cyber is an industry where we met it initially with a bit of skepticism and fear, and we've started to embrace it a little bit ourselves, actually embrace it a lot. So tell me, what brings you to a cybersecurity event? What are you hoping to talk to all the cyber professionals out on the floor about today?
Oh, well, I suspect the thing that's top of mind to so many people at the moment is Mythos, Anthropic's new tool, AI tool that has, in many ways, I think, woken up people to the idea that artificial intelligence is advancing at such a rapid rate that it's changing the conversation we need to have, changing what we need to do. In many respects, it used to be most of the cyber threats were human. There were humans somewhere in there.
Yeah.
It was humans being spoofed. It was humans that were coming at you. And I think what's now the case is that AI has reached sophistication and maturity. That's not just the case. There's all these AI tools now that will be helping you and hurting you.
Yes, I mean, there's probably still humans who are operating the tools that are attacking you.
There's always a level of humans at their back. But the problem here is that AI is now being very democratized. These tools are in the hands of everyone. And it used to be, it was a human who had the technical expertise to work out, how to exploit some zero-day flaw in the system and uncover those zero-day flaws. And now you don't need to have that expertise anymore. Anyone with the tools can do that and string together some quite sophisticated attacks.
Mm-hmm.
And that means we're going to have to lift our game and fix all those problems before the bad guys come at us. And it's quite sobering to hear that some of the zero-day flaws that Mythos uncovered were nearly 3 decades old, that humans had overlooked them for nearly 30 years, and the AI, being as thorough and as careful as it is, was able to uncover these flaws that then needed to be fixed.
What do you say then to organizations out there that since the news of Mythos had come out are just throwing all of their effort behind their vulnerability management and patching programs, that's become like priority number one? Is that the right response, or is that just a bit of a reactive knee-jerk reaction to this news?
Well, there is a little bit of a knee-jerk reaction because actually this is the new normal. So sure, there are some new threats that this tool is going to uncover, but you've got to realize that this isn't going to go away, right? And it's not in 6 months' time when, as I imagine, I suppose, Mythos is going to be released to the world, not just to the select few who are being given a priority to fix all the bugs. When it's available to everyone, then there'll be other tools coming along. And it's wrong to think that this was just Mythos. Actually, there's been some studies done since that have shown that existing open weight models that were already out there with the same harness, which is, unfortunately Anthropic have open sourced the harness by accidentally revealing the code.
Mm-hmm.
So there are no real secrets there. The existing open weight models were able, with the right prompts, to find those bugs as well. So it's not that Mythos was a step change in the capability of the models. Actually, those models were already out there in the hands of the many.
I'd be interested to get your thoughts on this. So I was at an event last week, people in that room arguing that, perhaps there was a slight bit of, not sales, but there was a bit of spin being put on the Mythos news. Now, there's only a few people who have their hands on it at the moment. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think it's as powerful as they say it is?
The truth is always somewhere in between.
Yeah, of course.
And in this case, yes. Several weeks ago when Anthropic were opening their Australian office, and they were on a whirlwind tour meeting the Prime Minister and various other people, I got to meet some of the Anthropic people then, and they were whispering about, what was going to happen with Mythos and the capabilities. And of course, they're talking it up a bit. They're in competition, a very, very fierce competition with OpenAI. And, I think a little bit, it's, the way that they've selectively released it again. Are you in the club or you're not in the club? It's, I'm reminded of many a digital service where it's only available to the select few, which increases the desire of other people to be there and so on. So I think they've certainly managed it well and created a lot of buzz and publicity around it, but there are very real threats. You might have noticed. I said back then, when Mythos was first announced, that you're going to see a lot more software updates, and we're seeing.
Yep.
I look at my every couple of days I'm having to update my Linux distribution because there's a new 0-day flaw that has to be fixed today, and they're coming at us at a much greater pace. And I keep on asking the chief security officers, was Mythos behind that? And frequently the answer is, yeah, these tools are finding these bugs now, and they need to be fixed.
Now, bit of a double-edged sword for the club, as you called it, right? Those select few who've been given access, because on one hand, they can very much wear that badge of honor. Well, guess what? We've got Mythos in our hands.
Yeah.
On the other hand, it could be a bad report that comes out once it's had a chance to rumble around. I want to touch on your latest book, if I can, which argues that 6 ideas are all you need to know about AI. Very interesting title. For a room full of cybersecurity leaders like you're going to be talking to, or who you are talking to on this podcast, which of these 6 ideas do you think matters most right now, and why?
That's a tough question to. It's like trying to pick your favorid child, isn't it?
You love all your 6 ideas.
I love all my 6 ideas. I would step back and say that, the important thing, I'd encourage people to take a look at the book. Indeed, I should say it is as the title might suggest, it is a short history, and it is also quite a light-hearted look at the field. One of the important messages in the book is that actually this overnight success. Many people, I think, ChatGPT was released 3 years ago. Suddenly, AI had arrived, and it was going to change our world. And like most overnight successes, it was 70-odd years in the making that people have been working on artificial intelligence since the 1950s. In fact, since, as the book says, June the 18th, 1956, which was the first day of artificial intelligence.
Right. Okay. So it's more to the point of like, hey, you may be hearing about this now because it's got so much commercial success, but this is actually, and even just people in cyber, it's not anything new. We've been trying to get what we were calling machine learning going for quite some time.
Indeed, and the fact there's 6 ideas tells you it's a collection of ideas that have come together. There's not magic. People do think the tools are somewhat more magical than they are, and there's actually quite simple ideas behind them. What you mentioned, one of them, machine learning, neural networks. That's one of the ideas. A very simple idea that there's one type of intelligence we know about. That's human intelligence. We know a little bit about the structure of the brain. It's made up of these neurons connected together in networks, and as we learn things, the weights of those connections get updated, get reinforced positively and negatively. And that's what we do in machine learning these days. That's a very simple description of a neural network. That's how it does. That's how it works. I should point out it's a very simplified model of the human neuron that we're working on, a much more simpler, abstract model, because the human brain is still way more complex than the neural networks, the artificial neural networks that we're building, even in something as sophisticated as ChatGPT. And it also, as I point out in the book, that I still have immense respect for the human brain, that human intelligence is still remarkable compared to the primitive, let's be very precise, very primitive intelligence that we've been able to build in machines. And it was one example that the efficiency of the human brain is just incomparable to the inefficiency with which we build artificial intelligence. The human brain works on 20 watts of power. That's a dim light bulb that's running your brain. That's a third of your body's energy. Your brain, interestingly enough, uses more energy than your heart. It's the most energetic organ that you use. And that's why your head, of course, is on your shoulders, because it's generating all this excess heat that needs to be radiated away. So that's all we can afford to hand over to our brains. It's a third of the energy that our body manages to make.
Yeah, we talk about the sheer amounts of energy needed just to power one AI data center, or just to answer
gigawatts of energy that are being consumed to serve up AI and to train AI, and on other measures, right? So if I would show a small child a teacup and say, "That's a teacup," the child will know what a teacup is. All sorts of teacups. To train a machine learning algorithm, a computer vision algorithm to identify teacups, you'd need thousands of copies of pictures of teacups before it had any chance of identifying teacups. And then it would still make mistakes. It would still mistake a chihuahua for a teacup.
Yeah, and probably infringe on some people's copyright in the process, which tends to be what upsets people in that training model.
But putting those words of caution aside, we now have at least artificial intelligence that can do really useful stuff.
Speaking of words of caution, you've been outspoken about the needs for limits on AI, so much so that you were banned from Russia, as I mentioned in the opening there. And I'm sure there's an interesting anecdote behind that.
There is. Like most things in my life, I was the second person to know. My wife was the person who told me. She came back from the school run one morning and said, "You're on the radio." I said, "What do you mean I'm on the radio?" She said, "Yeah, you're the headline of the radio." I said, "Oh, okay." And then the phone started ringing as journalists started to ask me to comment on the fact that I was on the list of prominent Australians that had been banned from Russia. This was at the beginning of the Ukraine war, when Australia, like the UK and US, had banned some Russian oligarchs because they were too closely connected to the regime and the horrors that were happening in Ukraine. And in retaliation, Russia picked up some prominent Australians to ban. So there was the chief of AISA, the chief of the army, and interestingly enough, me.
And and the chief scientist for UNSW.ai as well.
Yes. Well, I had criticized the way that AI was starting to be used in that conflict, in particular by the Russians. And so I got my just desserts, perhaps.
Okay, listeners, we need to talk about CyberCon 2026, and more specifically, how much money you could be saving right now. Early bird registrations for the Australian Cyber Conference are open, and they close on Monday, the 30th of June. And here's what that means in real terms. If you're an AISA member, a full 3-day gold pass is just $899 right now during the early bird special. That's a $480 saving off the full price 3-day gold pass for members just for registering right now. If you're not a member yet, early bird is currently $1,485, which is a $1,200 saving on the full price non-member ticket. And this isn't just any conference pass. A gold pass includes the full 3 days of Australia's leading cybersecurity conference, networking drinks, and the legendary CyberCon block party, all in Melbourne from the 14th to 16th of October 2026. But the date to remember right now is June 30th, because after that the prices do go up. So register now at cyberconference.com.au. That's cyberconference.com.au. We'll see you there. On the topic of limits on AI, so in cybersecurity, we're talking a lot about how we use AI in offensive cyber operations. I know I've been, trying to explore that myself in my own organization. Where do you see the line there falling in terms of for AI in offensive cyber operations and the autonomous response? And is industry self-regulation in this space anywhere near enough, or are we? I can guarantee from your response, I think I know the answer. But
excellent questions. I do worry that Anthropic has, done as far as one could tell the responsible right thing in the case of delaying the release of Mythos, giving it to certain parties to be able to understand its capabilities and identify any flaws that need to be fixed quickly before bad people get their hands on it. But I don't think we can just rely on the goodwill of these organizations.
Mm-hmm.
And equally, as an example, they've only given it to largely US or based organizations. No, none of the banks here in Australia or indeed in Europe, anywhere else outside the US, have been given access to these tools. So they get to pick and choose, and this is going to impact, our own sovereign infrastructure. And we have a real interest to make sure that we get it right and that we don't rely on their goodwill. And we live in a very challenging world these days, and that therefore there might need to be stricter rules and regulations, and the government has to be a bit more proactive about policing this.
I want to pick back up on something you were talking about before when we were talking about the barrier for entry around cyber attacks, how that's been lowered as well through AI. And there's a term that we hear a lot when we come to events like CyberConnect and other cyber conferences when people get up and talk about AI-based attacks. And that is the defenders are losing the AI arms race against attackers. From your vantage point in your role, is that framing accurate, or is that something that's doing a lot more harm than good?
Well, there's always been this asymmetry between defense and attack, which is the bad people only needed to find one way in, and you had to find all the ways that we could possibly come in. So there was always that asymmetry, but I do think AI has somewhat amplified that asymmetry and made it a tougher proposition for people to defend. Because now that it's not just humans are coming at you, but that the algorithms are coming at you and finding, some of these flaws, quite complex ones where they've glued together lots of different pieces, lots of different security vulnerabilities. Each on their own would not actually be a backdoor in, but if you glue them together in the right order, and humans aren't very good at doing those sorts of jigsaw puzzle things, whereas machines, of course, are perfect at doing those sorts of things. So I do feel it has challenged us, but not to forget, of course, that AI tools are also arriving to help you do the defense and to spot suspicious looking activity, to be there. Because the other thing that we haven't really talked about is very obvious is that the time to respond has gone from weeks and days to hours. That it takes the average time now for someone to extract sensitive information from an organization is under 2 hours.
Yes, and I can remember sort of 2019 pre-COVID times when we would talk to our boards and senior leaders about dwell time, right? Dwell time was somewhere in the order of 200 days that a threat actor will sit silently and wait.
Yeah, waiting for the right moment, learning about where everything was.
Yeah. Now it's the smash and grab, and AI has probably helped with that.
The other thing is that it used to be that they would come in and they would maybe, they would encrypt everything and you'd have to pay a ransomware to get things decrypted. But now, unfortunately, we live in such a connected world and there's so much sensitive data out there. It's just, we'll publish it on the dark web.
Yeah. I mean, there's been breaches recently. One quite close to me, which I was not impacted by, was Canvas, a learning management system, where they pretty much just walked in the front door and logged in and took what they needed. And that's what they say now as well. Like, threat actors aren't actually hacking you. They're just logging in.
Yes, because it's a much more connected world. And we've got many more services and software as a service that there are many ways in. And so that Canvas attack impacted schools across Australia, higher education organizations across Australia and around the world. And you realized how exposed all of us were to someone going in someone else's back door.
Yes, absolutely. My SecOps manager called it the cheapest lesson any of us will ever get.
Well, and I had to do the right thing, which is sit my wife and my school-age daughter down and give them their cyber lesson. Okay, now you're going to have to be much more careful because people are going to have all that personal information.
Yeah,
they're going to know about all your homework, all your school ID number, and all of that stuff. They've got now, and so you're going to have to be that much more careful.
I'll talk about how AI is being governed within organizations. So there's a lot of cyber leaders, so CISOs or equivalents, are actually being expected to govern AI within their organizations. Not within every organization. A lot of organizations have hired chiefs of AI and what have you. But in the case where and it is quite a common trend where there are cyber leaders who are being expected to do that governance and that safe and secure rollout whilst still learning about this new emerging technology ourselves, what do you think are some of the most important questions that they should be asking their AI vendors and their own organizations to help themselves get their heads around these responsibilities?
Tough question. The problem is that AI is arriving both top down and bottom up in many organizations. So many organizations have realized that they're going to have to get some AI tools and exploit the possibilities, and they're working through a partnership with Microsoft Copilot or OpenAI, or whoever it is. And so, there's AI arriving through those much more carefully monitored strategic partnerships that you might be drawing out. But equally, there's a lot of AI that's arriving in organizations from the bottom up, which is that people are picking up the tools because they're widely available. Many of them are, there's free tiers of subscriptions, and using the tools. And there's something to be said that those are the people at the cutting face, and those are the people who understand the problems and empowering those people. But often they're doing it not necessarily within the rules that the organization has set up, and certainly not within the knowledge of the CIO or the chief security officer or anyone else. And so there's a lot of shadow AI in an organization that will be exposing you to risk and trouble. And the problem is, you've got to make the AI that's available through those more central purpose processes, more attractive and fitting the needs of your organization, so there isn't the temptation to do it on the sly.
But the temptation is often almost like a popularity contest, right? If you're giving everyone access to Copilot or ChatGPT, but everyone's hearing how amazing Claude is at the moment, like. As soon as you go and try that, and you're like, well, this is giving me a much better output than what I'm given at work. That shadow IT and shadow AI is a tough battle to fight because, in the modern digital world, people are going to use the tools that they want to use. And
they are. So you've got to make sure that they use it, that you provide those tools to them through the appropriate mechanisms so that you have oversight.
Yes.
And so on, that it's not coming up to the back door. My own university, rightly so, people are saying, but we don't want just the Copilot that is provided in the university subscription. We want to be able to access, these other tools. There's lots of, and of course, it's a rapidly evolving landscape and of tools and capabilities. And so you've got to be really on top of that.
Absolutely. To wrap us up, Toby, you seem to get the ear of quite a few important people on these topics. We've mentioned in your intro, you address the United Nations, you speak to heads of state and other audiences.
Much to my surprise.
There's not a little imposter syndrome sitting on your shoulder, is there, Toby?
There is a little bit of imposter, but there's also, there's a little bit of me thinks, well, actually, this is quite good. I'm a random professor in Australia, and yet I'm able to offer scientific advice to some quite senior heads of state. The world's actually really reasonably flat. That's quite a good thing.
If you could finish us off, though, with what is the message about AI that you wish was landing more clearly with Australia or the Australian public right now? What is the one thing that you think you'd like to see cleared up?
It's not just data centers that are going to push up the price of our electricity and use all the water that we should be drinking. There's a lot more to AI than the data centers. There's a lot more that we can be doing ourselves that will actually help us solve some uniquely Australian problems, whether it be managing our changing climate, managing our marvelous ecology, dealing with some unique challenges that we have here in Australia. And so I hope people would start to see the opportunities as well as the threats.
Good advice. Toby, that has been excellent. I need to let you go because you have got a panel session to do. It's been a pleasure to chat with you. Thank you so much for sharing your voice with us today.
Been a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Cyber Voices. Our music is by Inaugural. Our show artwork is by Studio Quarantine, and we record our show at This Is a Studio in Pran, Melbourne, part of Popplant Productions. Please make sure you follow the show on your podcast platform of choice and leave us a 5-star review. This will help others find the show. Also, please follow the association on LinkedIn and Instagram. If you want to add your voice to our ever-growing chorus of diverse cyber voices, have questions, feedback, or would like to be a sponsor, you can do so by emailing us at cybervoices@aisa.org.au. That's cybervoices@aisa.org.au. Are you an AISA member? If not, you should consider joining our network of over 12,000 members across Australia. An AISA membership can open doors, build professional networks, create lifetime friendships, and offer exclusive training, events, and other perks. Become a member today by heading to our website at aisa.org.au. That is all for today. I hope you will join us again next time on Cyber Voices.